I love that music. Hello, you. My
It's so
name's
good.
Jonti.
And I'm Brandon, also known as B Squared, and this is This Week in Ink.
Each week, we'll be wading through the Inklands to bring you the news and views on all things Lorcana.
Coming up, we have our weekly features such as Main Street Market Watch and You Made Me Ink.
And we'll be discussing the latest topics and taking opinions from the live chat. Hello, live
Hello,
chat.
live chat! We've got lots to talk about this week between the mass retail launch and two major Disney Lorcana tournaments wrapping up this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into this thing.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for bearing with us when we took a week off last week because I wasn't well. I'm still not 100% to be honest, but at least fluids aren't flying out of every hole in my body like they were this time last Monday. So yeah, we're back to it. So thanks for giving us a week for me to get myself feeling back up to it. So yeah, we've got loads to dive into, but first of all, let's just quick catch up. So how's your last couple of weeks in Lorcana been, Brandon?
It's been good. I was able to get really as much product as I needed. I think it was like the week we took off or the week before we took off. I went to League, got my allotted 12 packs for the week, and pulled 2 enchanteds like back to back.
Out of 12 packs?
Yeah, it was like 9 packs from the end of a box, and then 3 packs. Yeah, 3 packs from a new box.
So that's I was gonna say that's got to have crossed over boxes. That would be insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and so did that, and like within an hour, traded all of it away, and basically filled up all the like singles that I needed for cards that I think will be staples later. So
okay.
After that, I was kind of like, well, now I don't really need to buy extra product, but on retail release day, I ran by my local Walmart and they had a lot of stuff, which I was surprised by because I didn't show up extra early or anything. I just dropped by after work at noon, and there was a ton of the first chapter there, which was really cool. And then there was a lot of Rise of the Floodborn too. So I know that's not like that in everybody's area, but it was really refreshing to see like so much of Lorcana just sitting on the shelf in a Walmart, just like Pokemon that was next to it, you know?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. So Walmart, I think Walmart Canada does get it. The 2 Walmarts here in this city don't, or at least the two Walmarts into the. We've actually got like 4 Walmarts, I guess, in London, but the 2 that are sort of near me, I've never seen Lorcana in either of them. One of them, once I saw like a price tag on the shelf, like where it would go.
Yeah.
But I never actually saw anything turn up. But Toys R Us is still a thing here in Canada, and they get it. So that was really the sort of big box store for Canada was Toys R Us. So normally it would be the sort of thing I don't really have to worry about because obviously I work at LGS. I'm able to get as much as I want from there. Well, not as much as I want, but I'm able to get product from there and enough to be happy about. But our store didn't get any of the D100 sets, and I really wanted 1 or 2 of those, so I did go and line up at the Toys R Us. So yeah, I got there. It opened at 10 a.m. I got there just before 9 a.m. I got my kid I flung my kid onto the school bus and ran back to the car and drove to Toys R Us, and I got there just before 9 a.m. and I was the 13th person in line, I think. And I was sat there thinking, oh man, there's gonna be 12 things.
It's gonna be, yeah. I would have been so scared.
Yeah. So the good thing I will say though is that the 12 people in front of me were all people I knew from the playing community. So
that's cool.
Yeah, which was really good to see. Everyone there was there to buy packs for themselves. And like there was no signs of scalpers or resellers or anything like that. So that was really good to see. Although afterwards it did feel like a bit of a negative because we bought it all. Right. Sort of, by the time it opened, there was maybe sort of 16, 17 people in the line, and by the end of those 18 people, the Toys R Us was out, and nobody bought a load of stuff. They did limit it. They actually, when she came out, I was a little bit annoyed because she came out and she was like, oh, okay, so I've got a dozen of the well, she came out and she said, I've got a dozen of the special kits and a dozen of the Lorcana sets. We all went, what does that mean?
Okay.
Yeah, like, it just
Great.
came out, just made up names.
I'll take one of each.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
I'll take a Lorcana set and a special kit. Thank you. But then so she's like, so I've printed off the tickets for them, and it was the 12 D100 gift sets and 12 troves is what they had. And she's like, we've got packs as well. But we've got loads of packs, so we're not going to limit those. But these are all we've got. So I'm thinking, okay, so if she says you can have one of each, then I'm getting number 13 and I'm getting nothing. But if she says you can have one, then it might go down to 20 more people. And she said, so you're going to be able to buy 2 of each.
Oh, geez.
So the first 6 people could get 2 of each, and we were like, so like fuck the rest of us then, or what? And she's like, oh well, that's what we told people this week, 2 of each, so we have to kind of honor it. And so but then I was walking away because I was like, it's fine, like I don't need packs, I literally just want the D100 set, I don't need more product, I just wanted that. So I was walking away, and I was, as I got across the parking lot, because on the other side there's a GameStop, which apparently had some as well. I was like, well, I'll go and try those. So I'm walking over to the GameStop. But as I got halfway across the parking lot, I could hear them all shouting my name. So I turned around and walked back, and they were like, she's got more. She's got 24 of each thing, not 12 of each thing.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to limit it so that everyone can have like one of each of them.
Yeah.
Or, So I was able to get my 2 D100 sets, and that's all I bought. They had loads of starter decks. They didn't actually have any Rise of the Floodborn packs. They just had first chapter packs. But they said, we are expecting Rise of the Floodborn packs. We just can't find them. They're probably in the warehouse somewhere. We just can't put our hands on them. So they took down people's names and numbers, and they said, we'll give you a call when we find them, and we'll put like 6 packs away for each person that's here now. So that was about as good as they could handle that. But again, I didn't want anything. I don't need more. Like, I'd rather get more product to people now. I just wanted those D100s because I hadn't seen them anywhere else. So I got 2 of those. I then walked over to the GameStop anyway, thinking, I'll go and see what they've got, And I walked in and I was like, do you have any Lorcana? She's like, yeah, you can have one thing. I was like, okay, cool. And she put a blistered cardboard blister and a single pack out. And she was like, you can have one or the other. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take a pack. I'd walked across the parking lot. But that was apparently quite annoying because there was people lining up at GameStop, and she came out and she was like, you can have one thing, one pack, and all it was a pack. So people were a little bit annoyed by that. But these are the problems you get with big box stores, because they're not expected to know every product inside or out. So the only thing they can really do is limit it by SKU, right? Limit it by by product number. But once we got inside Toys R Us, they were saying, you can take 5 packs if you want. And I was like, okay, 5, that's a pretty good limit. So the guy in front of me, a friend of mine, Jason, said, yes, I'll take 5 first chapter packs. Why not? It's an enchanted lottery, if nothing else there, right? For for 20, 30 bucks or whatever. I'll take 5 packs. And she came over and she was like, okay, so there's 5 with Elsa on, and there's 5 with Mickey Mouse on, and there's 5 with Maleficent on. And he's like, okay. And he's like, well, that's 15 packs then, isn't it? Not 5.
Oh, so they were counting them each as different.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, why are you buying 15 packs of set 1?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, these might be the last set 1 packs I ever see. And I'm like, if people keep buying 15 of them like that, they will be, yeah.
They will be, yeah.
But the problem is we're all in this mindset now of, oh my God, Lorcana, quick buy it, because
it's been wild. Like, I mean, it's so all over the place, because it was really fun on retail release to see, like, all over my Twitter feed, so many people opening stuff. like people that couldn't even touch the first chapter when it came out,
Yeah.
you know, opening a lot of Rise of the Floodborn and even some of the first chapter. And it seemed like it was like there was just more, which was a good thing. And like I experienced that, as I mentioned before. I was even very surprised. So obviously Rise of the Floodborn released on Friday. And then the next Tuesday and Wednesday I had League. So I went by Friday to pick up stuff. And then that next week we could get our new stuff. And one of the shops that I went to that's the more popular shop for Disney Lorcana still had like 4 troves and 4 100 sets left to
Wow.
buy.
Just
And they
on the
only got
shelf?
10. Yeah, just on the
Wow.
shelf. And I was like so surprised because I wasn't expecting to get any extra, but I was like, well, shoot, they're here. Like I
Had,
probably won't see these again.
had they marked
So I
them
bought
up,
them.
or were they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a little marked up, but it wasn't crazy,
Okay.
I think, for a D100 set. It's honestly about for what they're going right now, like 70, 80 bucks or something. And then the troves, I don't remember how much troves were. I think they were a little bit cheaper than the 100 sets were. But
I think
yeah, I was surprised.
people have realized now that the troves are it's 8 packs. You buy an 8 packs
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. So as long as you're paying about that comparatively, then I think people have realized that there's no real extra value there, and so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I was pretty happy with it. I still haven't seen it here just on the shelf anywhere. Like even the set 1 restock we got at the store, we limited it to 2 packs a person per day, just because of how in demand it still was.
Yeah.
It's settled down now. We probably, if we do see more set 1, we probably could just put it on the shelf now, I think. I don't think anyone would come in and just be like, "Oh my god, I'll take it all." I think I think it has settled now a bit, but then again, like I say, I don't know. We went to Toys R Us and people were still buying 15 packs because they were allowed to.
Yeah,
and I think that's what it is. It's this allowed to that people have to they have to kind of get their heads out. They have to kind of get that out of their mindset, I think. So
yeah, it wasn't until I like looked at all the cards that I traded for. I was like, okay, I have almost everything that I would be chasing at this point. So like, there's no sense in me buying packs, even though like even when I went and checked Walmart and saw the stuff, I was like, I'll buy 3 packs. Like why not?
Well,
and
yeah. If nothing else, it's an enchanted lottery, right? Like if you've got the disposable income, if you've got the spare cash, and it's not going to set you back, then yeah, I'll buy a pack. But then, like, I do that with Magic when I was playing Magic a lot. Always better to buy singles, but I would still crack a pack, if I went somewhere and they had them, because who knows, right? You might just pull a cool mythic or whatever. So, yeah. So it's interesting that you were happy just to get that those enchanteds were like trade fuel for you, and that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I think maybe I've settled now on just owning 1 per set. And I'm kind of happy with that now. So I think if I were to open any more, I would probably do the same now and use them as trade fodder. My big problem is at the minute is I've built a Ruby Amber deck that I'm kind of happy with. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we look at the meta later. But I'm thinking of switching out the Amber for Amethyst. And I'd struggle to find some of the singles that I need for Amethyst now without going online.
Right,
because a lot of it's been bought out. A lot of the MIM stuff and the other sort of playable bounce stuff. So, but yeah, overall, yeah, I'm a big advocate for buying singles once you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm in a weird place right now when it comes to Enchanteds, because there's a couple. Like, there's a few from this set that I might keep had I pulled them. Had I pulled like a Cinderella or maybe an Alice, I ended up getting a Hercules and a Pete. And like Hercules looked really nice. Yeah, but he's like, it's not my favorite Enchanted out of the 12, I think. And so I was like, I know I'm gonna need a lot more cards. I don't really have the money to spend on on everything that I really want, because I'm taking a different approach than I did the first chapter, because I just wanted to collect as much of the first chapter as possible. I'm not doing that for Rise of the Floodborn. That's not financially sustainable for me. So I was gonna just stick to 1 deck and buy the singles for that and just work with it. If it was great, awesome. If not, I would try to change it to the best of my ability and work with what I had. But once I pulled both of those enchanteds, it was like 200 and something dollars worth of like trade fodder. So I was like, well, dang, like nobody really knew what was good in the meta yet. Like people were still testing. Popsicle was the big like thing, and we'll see in a minute when we talk about meta that like it hasn't performed as well as everybody was talking about it. So even without knowing what was going to be good and what was going to be worth trading for, I was like, well, now I have a little playroom. I can trade for some stuff that will probably be good, if not now, then later. And if I need to make a switch to a different color that I don't have a bunch of stuff for, at least I've got some stuff for it. Also, I'm trying to finish my foil and enchanted master set of the first chapter. So any of the enchanteds that I get now, I'm basically like the first thing I asked the shop owner was, do you have any first chapter enchanteds for trade? He was like, no, we're not, we're not holding them right now. So
you're looking at doing, what's that then? So 4 of
no,
4 of playset,
it's just
1 of a foil and each enchanted, or?
So for the first chapter, I'll have a play set of each and a foil and 1 of each enchanted.
Right.
But I'm talking specifically of just master set in the sense of having 1 foil of every card and all the enchanteds.
Wow. Okay.
Is the goal. And
that's
I ordered
for set 1.
Yeah, for set
right.
1.
Okay.
After that, it'd have to be like a special set. I'd have to really like the set in order to want to collect all of it, because I just don't. At least for Rise of the Floodborn, I mean, I love the cards, but I don't care enough to spend the money that I would have to spend to collect all of them.
Yeah,
I was surprisingly close though, especially after those trades. Like, there's only, after opening all the product, I think I landed with 7 unique legendaries, and a bunch of the super rares and rares. Like, I'm actually closer than I thought I would get with the little bit of product that I opened.
For set 1, I've done a play set. Like some foil, I quite quickly decided not to bother with foils because I feel like I had to do one or the other, money wise, because how expensive it would be. And I would get a lot more use out of the playset. And I'm not, to be honest with you, cold foiling is nice. I like the fact that it doesn't bring all the cards that much, but I don't find they really super pop. And so I was happy to not worry about the foils too much. So I have a play set, and then I've also got foils at the back of the binder, but there's a lot of gaps. With set 2, I've just done a master set. So just, well, not even a master set, just 1 of everything. Foil if it is foil, but if not, that's fine. In fact, I've actually traded some foils away and like traded up. So I've actually traded a foil for that version, for the regular version of that card, plus a few extras. So I've done that now. I have 1 of everything for Rise, and I was also pretty lucky. Out of the 2 boxes and the trove that I opened, I got 9 legendaries, and they were all different. So
wow,
yeah, so that's really good. So it's not a massive number of legendaries. It was basically 4 in each of the 4 in each of the boosters, and then 1 in the trove. So fine, but not crazy numbers. But the fact that they were all different was great. Because I only had to find like 3 more and trade for 3 more. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, the legendary Snow White is haunting me because
you're like the only one you pulled, right?
I've pulled like 3 or 4 of her, and I'm at the point now where I just like sigh when I open her because it's just like, oh, it's a legendary, But
that's crazy. Yeah, Sunscorched says I started to quit the foil set. Legendaries are just too expensive. I completely agree. Yeah, and it's and especially like for me, I am a collector. I do enjoy looking at the cards, but I am a big believer in the fact that this is a game and it should be played. So for me, I get a lot more value out of the play sets, and I can't do it every set. I just can't. I'm not rich enough. I can't do it every set. But there has been something really nice about me. Like I say, I've got Ruby Amber running at the moment. So I'm looking to shift it into Amethyst. I'm like, oh well, I'm going to go and try and find some of these foxes and some of these goats and and things like that. So, but I can go back and grab my 4 Spirit of Winters and my. You know what I mean? They're all sat there, laid out, ready for me. And there is something, like I get it. I get the appeal of that. I just can't afford to do it every set.
Yeah, I think from here on out, and I'm realizing this now, having gotten some of the Rise of the Floodborn stuff and knowing that I'm not going to get all of it, I'm very glad that I prioritized cards that I thought would just be good and like get play sets of them. So like for instance, I opened a foil Yzma with the super rare Yzma with the Enchanteds that I opened. And when I was trading my stuff away, the shop owner was trying to get a complete foil set so he could sell the whole thing just as a whole.
Oh, okay.
And he needed a foil Yzma. So I did kind of like what you mentioned. I traded up and then I was like, I'll give you this foil Yzma if you give me two. And he was like, sure. Yeah. So he gave me two regulars. And now, like, she's a very good card. She's played in a lot of decks. And if I want to switch to Amethyst, which I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, I can if I want to do the bounce stuff.
Because it's all there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Talking of enchanters, actually, I have got one thing to show you because there's a funny story with it. I'll just very quickly grab it. Talk to someone.
I have to talk to you guys now by myself. He does this to me all the time. How's chat feeling?
So, I feel like we get less sharpers from the shop this set too. Yeah, exactly, 100%. And to be honest with you, that is, I wouldn't have expected anything less. Really, it's a lot of them will continue trying to flip this, but a good chunk of scalpers are like, oh, that's fine there, that's not new anymore. They're already looking at the next thing, sorcery or altered or whatever else. Altered looks fun. So
I don't know what that is.
There's a new TCG coming next year with a pay to print model, so you can all the cards have a little QR code on them, and when you pull one, you can go and they'll send you the other three for the set for a cost.
Whoa.
Basically, they're basically trying to keep the secondary singles market in house.
Yeah,
we'll see. It's interesting if they can model it right. I think it'll do quite well. But yeah. So for those of you who follow me or follow the channel or whatever, you'll know that my set 1 enchanted was a Carefree Surfer, and I'm very happy. It's my favorite one of the set.
So jealous.
It's my favorite one of the set, and I'm very glad I got it. Set 2 is Sisu. And I'm very happy I got her as well because I think she looks great. I don't have her on me. She's still at the store. But I have started making a habit now of setting my phone background to whatever the latest enchanted was I pulled. Awesome. So that was Stitch for a while.
I need to do that.
But do you know why? Because the art they do for them is full card, right? But the bottom half is quite plain because all the text goes on top of it. So it works perfectly as a phone background because you can have the top half open and then all your apps at the bottom, and it looks really good. But now I also have a Wayward Sorcerer from set 1. So this came into my possession last week. And I have a story about it. So a regular in the store. She's a lovely older lady called Christy, and she's a big fan of all things nerd and all things geek and kind of dips her toe into everything. But she's really into dragons. Anything we have with a dragon on, she'll buy it. So she came in and she was looking at the regular version of Sisu that we had as a single, and she's like, well, I'll buy that straight away because it's a dragon. And she's like, what other dragons are there? And I said, actually, not that many so far. And I had my trade binder with me, and I had a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon that I'd opened that was the fifth of the set, basically. So I showed her that, and I was like, oh, here's one, look. And she was like, oh, can I buy that? I was like, actually, this is my own one for trade. I said, so you get anything cool that you want to trade, you come and talk to me, and we'll sort it out. Anyway, I wasn't actually working that night. I was just pottering about, and I went into the back to play a game of A Song of Ice and Fire, which is a Game of Thrones miniatures game. We were playing that, and she came back, and we'd still had the two packs a person you could buy, so she bought her 2 packs. I was like, oh, hey, let me see what you pulled in your packs. And she'd opened the packs and gone through them and then put them back in the foil wrapper and stuffed them into a handbag. And she was like, oh, okay, hold on. So she goes into her handbag and she pulls out this one and she goes, oh, this. And then she went, oh, and this really shiny one, look. And it was a Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer. I was like, oh my God, let me go and grab you a sleeve.
Yeah.
So I went and got her a sleeve and a top loader, and I said, these are pretty rare. These, it's one in every 100 or so packs to get one of these. And she was like, oh, she said it's cool. I said, yeah, you want to keep it nice and keep it special. It's a good rare card. And she went, it's nice, but it's not a dragon. I was like, no, it's not a dragon, though. She's like, I'd swap you this one for that dragon of yours. And I was like, oh, Christy, I can't do it. Like, it's not a fair trade. It's not a fair trade at all.
Yeah.
So I had a look at the value of it, and they've actually come down quite a lot of the first chapter thingies, but not that low. So
of course.
but I had a Mim, a Madam Mim dragon as well, like the one of. So I was like, how about these 2 dragons then? Because that was actually that was about a right kind of deal. And that kind of came out at like $85 to $110 or something. And she was happy with that. So I gave her my spare monsters dragon and a Madam Mim dragon. So, and I've since then traded back for another Mim dragon to get the 204. So I've ended up with this, and I don't really know what to do with it. I think I probably need to sell it, because having 2 enchanted from set 1 is irritating because because one,
so you either have one,
exactly, one
or
is
all of them.
One is a conscious decision. One is a conscious decision, and 12 is obviously the dream. 2 is a really awkward number that makes me itch every time I look at them.
That's kind of why I just traded. I mean, all the other reasons I mentioned before, but for the same reason, I traded away the other ones for Rise of the Floodborn, and I kind of told myself it would have to be one that I really liked to keep it, because I'm definitely one of those guys that if I'm going to do something, I want to do it all the way, and I'm going to have all of it.
So Scotch says, send it to me and I'll pop some googly eyes in it. Yeah, I bet. Have we just found out who runs Googly Eyes Twitter?
I knew this already.
I thought it was a secret. I thought it was it was a big secret. But yes, we're a big fan.
Yeah, shout out to... I need to go find it because I don't actually know the...
I'm not sure what the actual handle is either, but I'm a big fan of it.
I'm going to find it because it's worth... Oh, how am I finding it? It's not showing up on Twitter.
I bet
Google Eyes Lorcana.
I tweet about. I retweet it a lot. I'm gonna see if I can find it, and I'll bring it up.
It's a great Twitter page. Sunscorch takes Disney Lorcana cards, but puts googly eyes on the eyes of the characters in the card, and it looks great. I saw recently they ordered a bunch of googly eyes in preparation to continue to do it with cards, and got them in all different sizes. And so I'm very excited to see Googly Glimmers. That's what it is. Thank you, Sunscorch.
At Googly Glimmers. It's on the screen now. I've put it up for you. So
okay.
It's really good fun. It's such a stupid thing, but it's so good.
It's so genius. It's like, it's one of those, why didn't I think of that, like, ideas? It's just so simple but amazing. I love it. Really Steven asks me, how am I on promos? You've got the hard ones except Mickey BLT. Yeah, I have the 6 D23 promos that you get in the pack of D23, except I don't have the Mickey BLT promo. Other than that, the only other promo that I'm missing from the first chapter is Gaston. And then after that, I don't really care about all the other promos. If I happen to fall into them, great. But I'm kind of like, I'm so close to having all of the first chapter cards that I just want to like complete that.
You might as well complete that. But then but that's also a good stopping point then, right? Like,
yeah,
if you're not going to be able to keep it up. I'm on the fence about promos moving forward. I can get the store ones very easily, obviously. And I don't have any of the D23 stuff. So basically I have P7 or whatever they're called onwards. Also haven't picked up a Gaston yet because they're pretty high priced. Like it doesn't seem to have affected this idea that they're going to be in multiple events. Doesn't seem to have really affected its resale value, unfortunately. So I'm also kind of waiting it out at the moment and seeing how many different events the set 2 ones go, because they've started now, right? The Rapunzel, the 4 dozen eggs, and that kind of interesting seeing how many different places they go to and what their sort of availability is online. It seems like they've been quite accessible.
Yeah. It was kind of wild to see the amount of product and how accessible they were to get at PAX Unplugged this weekend. Like, it was to the point that Disney Lorcana was messaging in their Discord. I don't know if they tweeted it or not, but I know at least in the official Discord, they were, I don't remember if it was in the announcement section or just for the events section, but they were basically like, hey, we still have a ton of product and there's no line. So like if you want to come get stuff, come get stuff. And I think every day or every hour, no, probably not every hour, at some point they lowered the bar to how much you had to spend in order to get promos.
Yeah.
And I saw pictures of people that had, dozens of promos because all you had to do was buy a $25, deck box or something.
Yeah, they put this one out that said PAX Unplugged last day special. In addition to the usual promo card with the $25 purchase, at $50 you'll get an additional card, and at $75 and up you'll get all three. When a box is 144, you're basically getting all three promos when you buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing or a good thing. I kind of wish a lot of this sort of stuff wouldn't be decided so last minute. Like the PAX Unplugged, I only really heard about all the things they were doing at PAX Unplugged like a couple of days before it. We'll talk a little bit more later in the show about some of the things they did, but it all kind of seemed a little bit last minute, and maybe they're just so worried that any sort of big announcement will just cause a big flood like they've had at Gen Con and stuff. But I do feel that things are going to start settling in now, and we're going to just start seeing more people who are genuinely interested, get on board. So I don't think that's going to be so much of a worry moving forward. So all right, shall we move on to our Main Street Market Watch?
Yeah. I think we should.
That's a good place to be. So we start off, as always, with our booster box. The Rise of the Floodborne booster box we're looking at now, currently sitting at $219.97 for the cheapest one, with a market price of $234. Still quite a bit over where it should be, really.
Yeah, my thoughts too. It's trending downwards, but still a little bit more expensive than I'm hoping to see.
It's obviously come way down since. So what was this peak here? So yeah, October. So obviously the highest peak was September. That was basically sort of when they were announced, really, and we got images that people could start putting online. And October was the highest peak, and then it's come down. And then had a big dip on LGS release, and then another big dip here at retail release. But now actually started to trend back up again, only slightly, but already we've seen that sort of lowest point seems to be the day of big box release is basically where is the lowest point you can buy a booster box on the secondhand market, I think. I'm going to just quickly see if I can find the first chapter and see if that lines up. See if that sort of lowest dip seems to be the same point. So the first chapter big box release will have been September 1st, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So October. So actually, that's going. Let's see if we can go a bit further back. August. Yeah. So actually, interestingly, the full big box store release of set one didn't really affect the price that much, and it was actually the restock.
The restock.
Towards the end of October really helped. Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't there supposed to be another first chapter restock happening?
That's
what I hear.
So one of our distributors, we did a big board game restock this week for like our last big board game order of the year before Christmas. And one first chapter box turned up in it, and we were like, "Oh, okay."
Surprise! Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. We're like, "Okay, cool." It's sat in the office. We don't know what to do with it. We'll probably just put it out and sell it as packs. But like, it's just kind of weird that one box showed up. So
yeah, but that at any other reprint or restock or whatever, I've just kind of heard in passing. I haven't done a lot of digging for, but I think it was Jared from Citizens of Lorcana. Maybe shared something on Twitter, and it was a post of a post in the Facebook Disney Lorcana group or whatever it is. I don't use Facebook, and it was somebody basically screaming that another reprint's coming. Sell all your cards now because they're all going to tank and the game's going to die because this is how games die or something. Yeah. So that's really about all that I know about a restock. But
yeah, I feel like that might have even just been the chapter one restock, and they were just getting wind of it. I don't get that. So you do have to be careful to not really flood the market early on, because there are going to be people who maybe, like, obviously, resellers and whatever are going to cry murder when this happens, but also there are going to be people who are just really into this, see the value of their collection drop down a lot, and it is a bit of a negative. I spent $3,000 on set 1, knowing full well that it won't be worth that soon. May one day be worth that again. But I was happy to do that because I wanted it all, and I want to be able to play with it and make content about it and stuff. So, but there is something to be said about it, massively being overprinted after such a drought that can really sort of flood the market. It happened with Star Wars Destiny, kind of was the thing that killed it. So they do have to be careful to not have too much there. Saying that, I can walk into any card game store worth its salt and buy any pack I like from the last 8 or 9 sets of Magic the Gathering, right? And that's how it should be. I should be able to go in and not feel like I have to buy the shelf out because I've not seen it anywhere. I should be able to walk in and say, oh yeah, there's a couple of cards I'm looking for in Dominaria. I don't really fancy buying the singles. I'll crack a couple of packs of that. Right? That should be how a trading card game runs. You should be able to go in. If I got my kid with me, I should be able to buy a pack of a Pokemon for him to open, right? Like that.
Right.
That should be how it is. So until it gets to that point, I don't think there's a problem with reprinting it. If it gets to the point where there are boxes and boxes of the stuff sat around in game stores, and they start to have to ditch it to try and recoup value, then it's been overprinted. But right now, I'm still not seeing products sit around in game stores, and I'm still seeing game stores overprice it, which means there isn't enough. So yeah, that's why I'm eager to see. I should check Walmart again soon to see if any of that stuff is still there, but I'm eager to see, because it felt like with this release and with the first chapter stuff getting restocked as well, that we're getting closer to that point, closer to a point that we want to be. And before Rise of the Floodborn release, I was getting really nervous about set 3 coming after this and whether or not Ravensburger could keep up. And of course, there's been all the online fiascos not going well and people not getting product. And I was getting really concerned that maybe by set 3, they're still not going to have enough, and it's going to really be bad for the game. But in all honesty, after seeing what I've seen personally, which could be very different than what the global actual situation is, I'm feeling a little bit more confident that hopefully within the next 3 months, they're in a much better place in regards to quantity of product that they can put out there for people to get. I hope so, at least. I feel like there was more. It's weird because I feel like there was more Bloodborne out there. But we didn't get any more as a store. We got the exact same amount.
That's the thing. Yeah. Neither did my store. That's why I was surprised that there was still stuff, because they got exactly as much as they got for the first chapter.
Yeah, but I think perhaps demand is a little lower because there are just there's a big chunk of people that were just like, oh, new thing, let's buy it all, whether that be to resell or to, scalp or to invest or just to play, right? So, I mean, we had first time round, for League 1, we gave everyone who played in one of the starter deck tournaments that we did as our sort of pre-release, our sort of launch events. We gave everyone who played in those 2 league points. And at the end of the league, I had a list of nearly 100 names, but the bottom 15 had 2 points.
Yeah.
And it was just people who played in the starter deck tournaments and were like, this isn't for me, or
not for them.
Yeah. So there's going to be that chunk of people, almost 15% really, as far as my very small data pool is, are just like, do you know what? Disney cards, but it's not for me, and that's fine, right? There are people who will play every single new card game that comes out, hoping it's the one that sort of really attracts them, and that's cool, whatever, go for it. I pick up a demo deck or a starter deck of everything that comes into the store, more for occupational
Right.
interest than anything else, honestly. But I still do. I buy a starter of anything that comes in. We just got sorcery in today, and my boss is like, I'm going to learn this tonight. We'll play some games tomorrow. So I've got no real interest in the game, but I'll grab a starter deck because that's just that's how I do. I have a locker at work, and it's got a Digimon and a Pokemon and a One Piece, and a starter deck from all of them. So yeah, there are going to be a chunk of people who just dip their toe in and it's not for them, and then they step back again. But for those chunk of people, those 15 people who never came out to League again, we sold them 12 packs because that's how we did. That's how we did our first launch. It was if you played in the starter deck tournaments, you can buy 12 packs. We didn't do that this time. This time we said if you play in our starter deck tournament, you can buy 6 packs to kind of help spread it out a little bit. But also pretty much everyone who played in our starter deck tournaments were now people who were entrenched in the game because they've been playing through League 1 and through Set 1. So when we put the tickets up for the Set 2 events, they sold out like this just from our League players. So we gave people less packs, but all of those packs stayed within the people who were actually playing the game, and it's helped us open a little bit more for singles, but then also sort of be able to we were able to give everyone 2 packs this week. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's been 1 pack a week before, but we've just been able to.
Well, there's a lot of people showing up at your league too.
Yeah, we had 38 this week, I think. So and that was that was a little low for us, but we actually had a Santa parade go down our street. So our street actually gets closed for a couple of hours, and it's always a little bit of a quieter day every year when that happens because a lot of people are just like, well, I'm just going to avoid the place in case I get stuck there or whatever. So yeah, I was actually expecting a few more. We also ran a draft this week as well, so we had 12 people drafting, and then 20 or so playing the casual. The way we're working it this time is every other week we're going to do a competitive event. So we did a draft this week.
I like that.
Next week it'll just be regular play. The week after that we're going to do a constructed, and then just sort of go on like that. So every other week there's a competitive event if you want to. Obviously we'll always still run free play, but yeah, so that'll be interesting. We'll see how that goes. So we're going to do $10 a ticket for constructed. That's 10 Canadian, so about 6 or 7 US. For constructed, and the pricing is going to be we have a Gen Con Mickey, a Trove, a playmat, and then once the $10 hits covering all of those, we'll just do store credit. It'll just do store credit on top as well. So yeah, hopefully that'll go well. That'll be interesting because that'll be the first one of those we've done so far. The only competitive events we've done are drafts. So it'll be interesting to see what a competitive constructed looks like. Yeah, and I'll be able to play in it, which would be fun because I'm not working.
Oh, that will be fun. You know what you're playing?
Either Ruby Amber because that's what I'm playing at the minute, or if I can pull a few more Amethysts, I'll probably swap out the Amber for Amethyst and play that. So we'll have a look at a couple more singles, and then we'll move into our meta talk anyway. So next one, so these one, I'll be honest with you, Brandon's pulled these up, so he's going to be chatting to me about these. The first one is Sleepy's Flute.
Yeah, so we'll get into the competitive events after this, but just for a little context, that's why I put these cards in here. Sleepy's Flute was played, I believe it was in the PAX Unplugged Amber Steel list that won the whole tournament, got first place, which is kind of like, at least in my opinion, was an odd card to see in the Amber Steel list. It's not one that I saw a lot of people running across the board. And so after this weekend, I was very eager to see what the prices were looking like. So I remember the rare being like about $1. Yeah. And sure enough, they have just like skyrocketed after this weekend. I will continue to go up. Yeah. So like, I mean, it's the same thing that happened to Stitch Rockstar, or not Rockstar, probably that too, but Surfer Stitch after Miami. Yeah. So maybe it'll come down later, but just an interesting little thing to see, what competitive events do to cards and singles. And a card that was $1, at release is now 5 times that.
It's kind of crazy that it makes that much difference.
Yeah.
But it makes total sense, I guess. It's an interesting one because I remember saying about Amber Steel, I remember saying like it doesn't need help. You know, the deck is obviously, you know, top tier deck. It doesn't need help.
Mm-hmm.
But if we ever get a thing that just gives you lore for songs, then it'll make the deck explode. And then
Yeah.
we got that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's uninkable.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't love the card either, especially after seeing Sorcerer's Spellbook. I was just like, I mean, yeah, it fits in the song deck. And I'll be honest, I toyed around just for fun. I built a Amber Amethyst deck that was just songs. I think it played the Mulan that like cares about songs. And I just went all in on the songs thing, and I drew a bunch of cards and bounced stuff and played Sleepy's Flute, and it actually did pretty well. But I didn't expect it. I like wasn't good enough to like be serious. I didn't think so. I was very surprised to see that. Kind of a lesson that if you think a card is good or you think a card's a staple, but it's like way cheaper than you think it should be, maybe just still pick it up. That's kind of how I feel about Mufasa right now, by the way. But we can.
Oh yeah, the legendary one.
The legendary Mufasa. Yeah, he's like $10 or something right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the next one. The next card on the list is Arthur, Wizard's Apprentice, which is a staple in the bounce decks in Amethyst. Right now, I think, especially after seeing the results of the tournaments, Amethyst is probably the strongest color, if not the second strongest, but it's definitely up there with the bounce stuff. And Arthur is just crazy. This set's like almost $20 card as a super rare. The reason I put it on the list is because I went to TCG Player, sorted all the cards from highest to lowest, and noticed, a bunch of the legendaries up there, and then Arthur was like in the middle of all of them.
Yeah, like more expensive than some of the legendaries. And I think even though we had some, big hitter super rares in set one, Big Tink probably being the most notable. Rockstar Stitch, I guess, was super rare. Like I don't think any of them. They only hit prices higher than a handful of the trash legendaries, I think.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, all the other legendaries were way more expensive.
We're still sitting
comparatively.
Up there, right? It was only like really like Gantu and Takar probably. Well, or maybe Beast Wolfsbane were like the only three. Those sort of very unplayable ones that were there. So. But here, yeah, he's sitting right in the middle of those legendaries, higher than maybe even half of them at this point.
It was a lot of them. So, yeah, just goes to show.
I mean, he's a great card. He's a great card. Yeah. He's kind of broken, to be honest with you. Like, I think Amber in general, bounce, which we'll talk about in a second, but I think it's a little broken. But also, I think it does say something about the power level, or at least the perceived power level at the moment of the legendaries in set 2. A lot of them really don't enthuse me that much, honestly. I don't see much of them at all. They don't excite me very much at all, and it's a lot of rares and super rares that are actually the ones that are really sort of blowing my mind. Eric at The Gamer did a really great article on this. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't think so.
It was the sort of the cards we saw during spoiler season that we were like, oh my god, this is broken.
Oh yeah.
Compared to actually the cards that are making a difference in the meta now. We were looking at Bell Archer. And just thinking, oh, this is insane, this is broken. The beast that readies that is seeing some play, but again we saw that and thought this is broken. And then now the actual cards that are affecting it is just really good value combo pieces like Haram Flavisham and the bounce package and the Cinderella singer and the cheap steel songs, all these things that are just going into being stronger cogs in already established engines are actually the ones that are seeing play and seeing a shift in the meta. It's interesting stuff, and it'd be interesting to see if that's a thing that carries on in this game. And because I think they have said a few times that legendary doesn't equal great. It's more of an interesting build around or an interesting idea on a card rather than it just being very strong.
Yeah, I've noticed the legendary and even super rare cards, you can kind of notice that it's more about how unique the card is just as a card. And it's like you're probably not going to see I mean, Tinkerbell's a weird one because we literally got 2 cards in Rise of the Floodborn that's like each half of a giant Tinkerbell, but it's like you'll never see, a card similar to that. Or like Beast Tragic Hero is the highest legendary of Rise of the Floodborn right now. It's a very, I'm gonna say weird, just because it's just an interesting ability of like when he's not damaged, he draws a card. When he is damaged, he gains a lot of strength.
Yeah.
And it's like
it's unique. It's a unique card. Yeah, I don't remember if I talked about that card on this show or not. But it was played again. It was played across from me for the first time at League a couple of weeks ago, and I'd read it obviously, a few times over, looking at it on the channel and what have you. But when it sat down across from me, I just sort of sat there, and he was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." I don't know what to do about him. Like, you're just gonna have to give me a minute. I was like, I don't know. Should I hit him? Should I leave him alone? And I was saying, I was like, that's the good thing about that card, is it's making your opponent shift some of their mental space away from their own game plan, and instead having to constantly worry about whether or not it's like you're getting value out of it. So Hobbies and Happiness, hey, Arthur's broken, but it's uninkable, so it's bad.
It's bad.
perfectly acceptable uninkable card, this one. We completely agree that a lot of uninkable cards shouldn't have to be, but this one, yeah, I get it. I get why this is uninkable. No, it's a good card. It'd be interesting to see where this one settles in a few weeks. I think it's worth $17. Honestly, I don't think that's a terrible price.
Yeah.
For a good quality super rare.
It's very impactful. After seeing a bunch of the lists this weekend, I threw together a Ruby Amethyst bounce control list just to play around with, and I'll straight up admit I severely underestimated Arthur. When I read the card, I was like, he quests one turn and gains you a bunch of lore, then he dies. And that's just not true. Like, for some reason, he sticks on the board. Even when playing against Steel, like, I guess just having multiple of them, being able to just, like, throw them down when one gets taken out. And there's other threats like Goat that people have to worry about as well. It's just bounce is very, very strong right now. And I don't remember how many of the bounce cards we already saw when we saw Arthur, like if we knew the whole package or not.
I don't think we'd seen all of the mims, which I think is what really makes Arthur really good, because you can quest with him, return something, play a mim, bounce him back, keeping him safe. There's a lot. Even then replaying him and just having him ready. Therefore, out of harm's way for a lot of the time. It's just a lot of value out of all of them, which brings us on quite nicely to this week's You Made Me Ink. So for those of you who don't know, You Made Me Ink is our feature that we do every week, where we take a look at a card. It's basically our card of the week, but it isn't a card of the week because we think it's been fun to play. And it's been winning us games. It's because it's the card of the week that our opponents have played against us and spanked us silly with. This week, the card we've chose is more of a representation of a larger issue, and it's Merlin Goat. Like how this is uncommon.
It's nuts.
Continues to make me just not understand how the rarity works in this game.
I was laughing at myself because when I went to Walmart the other day, bought the 3 packs, I opened them, and then I didn't really get anything. The 2 foils I got the 3 foils were 2 rares and an uncommon. It was Little John, some other rare that I don't remember, and Goat. And so I was like, well, I'm going to see if I made my money back. What's Goat? And I knew like normal Goat was 50 cents or whatever.
Yeah.
That was the more expensive foil. That's probably the most expensive card that I pulled out of all of the packs. And I pulled like 2 super rares, but it was like a $5 foil uncommon card.
Yeah. I think because it's going to be a very cheap uncommon, because is it a 2?
Yeah, because it's in the starter decks.
Two
it's
or 3? 3.
3 in the starter deck.
So the reason it's not more expensive is because there are 3 in the starter deck. So they're very, very accessible. They're everywhere. A lot of people were able to pick up starter decks. There was a lot more of them out there. So the reason I think it's cheap is because it's in the starter deck. But there's no foil of it in the starter deck, and there are a lot of people out there who wish to foil out decks. and this is getting a lot of play.
Yeah.
God, it's getting a lot of play. I'm so fucking sick of this card.
I think it's funny because I remember when we saw Cusco, people talked about how great Cusco was because it's as close to a burn card, like a burn spell that we have in Disney Lorcana. It's almost a guaranteed 3 lore every time you play it. And that's it. That's basically what GOAT is. It's a guaranteed 2 lore at least, even more if you can, bounce them a couple times while you're at it.
But the fact that it's so many other cards that gain something when they leave the play, they have to leave play in a certain way, right? It's either they have to be banished in a challenge, or that's mostly it, really. But like the fact that this is just no matter what your opponent does to this, you've gained 2 lore by being able to play it, and
by spending 4 ink,
and the amount of times. Like I've played against this deck. They've had an Arthur on board, and they've been at 16 lore, even like 15 lore, and I'm like, oh, I've lost. I've lost because they've got an Arthur down, and there's no way they haven't got a goat in their hand, maybe even 2 goats.
Yeah, it's completely changed the way you have to approach games just against Amethyst at all, just period.
Yeah.
Because I mean, used to 18 lore, it was kind of that really scary point. 19 lore, where it's like, maybe they can shift something and win. But now it's brought that number down even further, where it's, like you said, even 16 or 15 lore, you're getting really scared that they're about to drop 1 or 2 goats and then bounce them back, and there's literally nothing you can do about it.
It's I feel like they've got to be really careful about like what kind of Floodborn like Merlins and Arthurs we get in the future, because I feel like that could really affect this and maybe make this even more broken. That must be a really difficult thing to design around. I was thinking that a lot with a lot of the cards in this set. If you're not careful, in 6 or 7 sets time, they just print a little 1-drop uncommon of a character, and suddenly it makes the Floodborn of that character that they printed 4 sets ago insane. And I do kind of wonder about that. Like with that Bell Archer, for instance. We ever get a 1-drop Bell? That Bell Archer starts getting
she's
even
much
better. Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously I'm sure they're clever enough. They're clever enough to understand this and work around this, I'm sure. But it must be a real conscious thing they have to think about that perhaps a lot of other games don't really. I suppose the closest I can think of is in Magic, they might print a card with a certain keyword that suddenly makes, suddenly they print a card that's, knight, and there's a load of knights that suddenly get a lot better or something like that. So, thank Hobbies and Happiness absolutely cheerleading us in the chat. I appreciate you guys. I say Hobbies and Happiness. I'm assuming it's Dan. Seems too pleasant to be Jim. I'm joking, Jim.
The uninkable comment made me.
It's questionable, right? But we appreciate it, and hit the like and all that. You can super chat as well if you really want to help us out. We appreciate it. I forget we forget to mention that, but but we love you all being here. We appreciate you. We'd be sat and chatting even if you weren't here, to be honest. But
exactly,
nice
we'd just be talking to each other.
It's nice to have people on board. So Goat is like the sort of, I feel like the poster boy of all of this. But Arthur, the Mims have really impressed me. Not the big purple one, not the big dragon.
No,
I don't really see her much. But Fox. To a lesser extent, Snake have both really been putting the work in, man. It's kind of crazy. And I think the reason why I've been so offended by these cards, more so than usual, is because the deck I built going into set 2 is all about challenging. It's really focused on wanting to challenge. It's playing the Queen of Hearts, who lets you draw when you challenge. It's playing Shere Khan, that lets you gain lore when you challenge. And if I play anything else other than this deck, I'm absolutely running away with it. It walks all over dwarfs and bodyguards and any kind of weenie, rock star. Even the Steel Songs, it does pretty good against, because the big the big thing about this game is that you have to make the decision as to whether or not you further your own win con or affect your opponent's board.
Yeah.
Really. That's kind of the push-pull of the game. Do I turn this sideways to quest, or do I turn this sideways to hit something? And what I love about what Ruby's trying to do in set 2 is that it says, no, you can do both. You can hit things and gain stuff from that. And I think it's pretty good, and I think it could get even stronger with some more support. But it doesn't work if they never turn anything sideways.
Yeah, exactly. If they just bounce everything to hand.
Oh my god, it's gross. My good friend Jason, I play with every week, has basically built this deck out, and I can occasionally get a win against him, but for the most part, he just knows that, like he's sat there, and I'm sat there with Mary's in my hand and with nothing to hit. It's gross.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really anything you can do against it. I mean, I was playing Amber Steel the other day, and every single goat that hit the board was immediately just shot down and banished, and still they could just outrace me regardless. The only thing that I can think of is any of the lore stealing stuff, which is also in Ruby. So even then, you're probably still just playing like Ruby Amethyst into Ruby Amethyst, and you're just countering yourself.
So what I want to try and do with removing Amber, so there's not actually that much Amber in the Ruby build now. It's basically it's the good stuff Amber. It's the new Queen that I'm really kind of loving, actually, the one drop Queen, and then the shift. The shift
Amber Queen.
She's awesome. I'm having a lot of fun with her. You can either play her very aggressively and just get around turn 2 and start questing, or if you can get the challenging online, it just makes those all free. You get one of her down and a Shere Khan and a Maui. Oh my god, you're just absolutely clearing the board out. It's insane. So I haven't been enjoying her, but other than that, it's 4 Rapunzel and 4 Hades to bring stuff back from the yard. And I think that's it. That genuinely might be all the Amber that's in there now, honestly. Like, I've cut the lanterns out. I've cut the guests out. So it's, there's not that much Amber in there anymore. The Amethyst I would like to put in is stuff that exerts your stuff.
Yeah.
Surely to give me something to hit, because just even the little Elsa, and the big Elsa, she's just still a very good card, right? So, and then probably just replace the other stuff. Rapunzel is purely there to heal stuff for the card draw, so basically she can get replaced with friends on the other side, and is much more consistent and about as good, really, for the most part. So yeah, I'm thinking of pulling out the Amber and swapping it in for Amethyst, but not going full bounce. Actually focusing a little bit more on the rush stuff. I'd really like to see whether that Peter Pan's shadow can be a thing.
I looked at it pretty in depth, probably last week or 2 weeks ago, because I was like, how many rush characters are there? Is this viable? It's basically Ruby Amethyst.
Yeah.
And all of them are uninkable.
Yeah, so, that's the problem, isn't it? All of the Amethyst ones are. Rafiki and Zeus and the Peter Pan are all uninkable. The Ruby rushes aren't as bad, actually. The Little Queen, Maui, they're inkable. So there's a lot of uninkability in there. Yeah,
and so I think once we see more inkable rush characters, I think there's definitely a fun deck that you can build out of it. That's one I'm kind of like waiting for a couple sets to come by, and then all of a sudden this card starts seeing some play, because I think similar to how you said with Disney Lorcana, you're either questing or you're challenging. It's kind of that same idea of like, I can play a bunch of rush characters and I can rush you into your stuff, or I can play rush characters and quest with evasive and you can't touch me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. I tell you who else I've been absolutely loving in my deck as well, though, just before we move on. Doesn't really go with that game plan of wanting to challenge, but I'm so happy that I called this card as being really great before everyone else seemed to realize, and that's the Floodborn Lady Tremaine, the 6-drop Lady Tremaine. Oh my goodness, she is so much fun. She's basically Monstrous Dragon 3 turns earlier. Very times, very often, especially in a Ruby deck where you are running like Dragonfires and Mauis, they usually only have one thing to get rid of when she comes down, and it's so satisfying. Absolutely in love with her. If she ever gets a better Floodborn target, a better shift target, she gets a little better, although I will argue that she's one of those cards that the earlier you play her, the less value you get out of her, much like the Spirit of Winter and Monsters Dragon, right? You actually want to hit their big things.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even think she needs a shift target.
I don't play one. Yeah, I don't play her with a shift target at the moment, but it's definitely one to readdress if we get a better one, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's just catch up with chat. William Zobak says, great job on the discussion and podcast. Thanks, William.
Thank you.
So happy with my set 2 polls so far. Approximate 4 boxes. I'm 77 cards short of a playset. Well, that's really good.
Wow.
I pulled a Sisu and a Madame Tremaine Enchanted. That's really good. Excuse me.
I have to give a shout out to Hobbies and Happiness, talking about who are you the beatdown or who's the beatdown article. If you haven't heard of that article and you play TCGs and you want to get better at playing TCGs, I cannot recommend going and reading that enough. It's a very great article written a long time ago. Basically explains the importance of knowing whether you need to rush to win the game or you need to play a bit more controlly and figure who's the beatdown, essentially.
And being able to... That's why I've always really enjoyed playing mid-rangey stuff, because I like being able to shift into either of those mid-game. So I like the deck I'm playing at the moment. He's definitely more of a control-heavy deck, but it can still, just sort of rush if it needs to. I'm currently running that Felicia, just like I haven't really been getting that much value out of her, so I'm actually going to swap that out for the Surfer Mini. The little evasive surfer, and that's just going to help me shift a little bit more to what that mid-rangey that I can get her out early in quest if I need to.
Dan, that was the year I was born, by the way.
Yeah, Dan, don't talk to Jonti Brandon about times, because it'll make you feel very old. I often forget sometimes that he's quite a bit younger than us. Just to go on a mega tangent right now. I've recently re-entered the world of dating after being single from a divorce for a couple of years now, and I've been doing the whole online dating thing, and I matched with a girl who's quite a bit younger than me. She probably was also born around 1999. But we got chatting and hit it off, and I was like, yeah, cool, I'll have a slightly early midlife crisis and date a much younger girl. And we went out for drinks, and it was pretty good, but we got talking about like big events over the years and, where you were when certain things happened. And I said, I remember vividly where I was when Michael Jackson died, because a friend of mine was a really big fan, and he called me, and she went, who?
No way. I remember where I was when Michael Jackson died.
So and I just crawled up into an old man and died. And I've not seen her since.
I remember where I was when BB King died.
Oh, wow, I don't know. I don't know where I was that time. But yeah, that was.
Or when I learned he died, anyways.
That was definitely me feeling super old. So anyway, we don't need to talk about that. Let's move on to our second main topic tonight, then, which is the first 2 big events of Rise of the Floodborn. Which Brandon's going to take the lead on this one, because he's the more sort of competitive focused of the two of us. So where would you like to look first?
I think we'll start with PPG Columbus, partially because it was announced before PAX Unplugged, if I remember correctly. This was announced for the PPG Tour, I think is what they ended up calling it. It was a 2K in Columbus, Ohio. 45 players attended the event, and the top 8 was kind of diverse. I mean, there was a good bit of amethyst there, but there was top 4. Sorry, my hair is going crazy. There was a top 4. 4 Ruby Amethyst Bounce was in the top 8. Then there was Amber Amethyst Bounce.
5? Oh, yeah, sorry, Amber Amethyst Bounce it was. Sorry, I was going to say there's 5 bounce controls, but no, you're right. The top one was actually Amber Amethyst, sorry. Yeah.
So Amber Amethyst ended up winning first place, Bounce Aggro. And then there was a Amber Steel, a Ruby Sapphire, and an Amethyst Emerald. So it was kind of all over the place. Really, the only synergies being that there was a lot of bounce. I
Yeah,
mean,
amethyst equals good. Pretty
yeah,
much is
and
what
like
we're seeing.
that's what all of them were doing in one form or another. The
Yeah.
ruby amethyst was doing control. They were bouncing early in the game and then playing things like Tremaine, Be Prepared, things like that. It was really surprising to me that Amber Amethyst made it through to the end, because Steel like is just basically the counter to that deck, and I was expecting to see a lot of Amber Steel
Uh-huh.
running around, especially because prior to these events, I the two decks I heard most about were Ruby Sapphire, Popsicle, and the updated Amber Steel songs. And then I saw a graph that like the most played deck ink combination on Pixelborn was Ruby Amethyst, and I mean that reflects that both in this, and we'll definitely see it in PAX Unplugged. I don't know what all 45 players were playing, what the pie really looked like across the board there, but yeah, pretty diverse other than
So is this
bounce being good.
did they just split top 8? Did they just shared
I don't
top
think
8?
so.
They played it out.
Yeah,
So
because
this
Amber Amethyst got first place.
so the list I'm looking at here, the 1 to 8 is the actual
I think
positions
so.
then. Okay. So
Yeah, I
Mushu's
believe so.
done an awesome layout of all of these, so we can have a look at them a little bit more in depth. Let me just do
Okay.
a zoomy zoom on these. There we go. So here's the first place then. Yeah, Amber Amethyst. It's really interesting. I think let's be honest. We can all look at great decks. The deck is half the battle. The pilot
Right.
is the other half. So I think probably what we're seeing here is good cards, good synergies, but at the end of the day, a good player can make a deck work, and that's probably what we're looking at here. So yeah, it's super aggressive early game. Quite a few on Inkables, I'll be honest with you, especially in the early game. I suppose lower costed on Inkables are a little less offensive than higher costed ones, but basically you've got the full set, the full play set of Biding a Time, Making a Wish, and Star Attraction. And then you have the sort of classic coverall for those, which is Simba, Protective Cub. But now also what you're gaining is the ability to bounce them back with mims to sort of get them out of trouble as well, and very often being able to replay them the same turn once you start getting up to your sort of 5 and 6 inks, right?
Yeah, and I heard the Pinocchios were pretty oppressive too, because it's just the 2-drop 3 lore, and you have so many things to bounce it, whether it's Befuddle, whether it's Arthur, whether it's any of the mem cards.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you don't have something to get rid of it immediately, I mean, it's questing for 3, it's bouncing back up into their hand, and then they're playing it again, readied to quest for 3 the next turn.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it when I first saw Pinocchio. I thought it was a bit of a trap. But then I think we saw a lot of the other bounce stuff. The friend of mine, my colleague Jason, who's playing Amethyst Ruby deck with all the bounce stuff, has very often now bounced Pinocchio back with Arthur for 5 lore, for 6 lore even, because Arthur's questing for 1. 6 lore from turning 1 card sideways. Turning 2 cards sideways and having one of them come back is pretty gross. 6 lore, like it's almost a third of what you're so close if you're able to do that twice, because everything else you've got going on as well. It's kind of gross. Really low curve here I find is really interesting. 4 being the highest thing you're playing here. I think it's kind of interesting that we're seeing the Cinderella get play here, because there aren't. I mean, I suppose she's there to sing Friends, really, isn't she, on turn 2? That's kind of it.
Yeah, I think it's just to keep stuff in your hand, because with such a low curve, I mean, I didn't watch the deck be piloted, but I assume if you end up with more than 4 ink in your inkwell, you're playing cards out of your hand relatively quickly, depending on the matchup, of course. You don't want to throw everything out there. But I imagine just keeping a full hand so that you can play whatever you want, and just finding more stuff to have answers and reactions, like the foxes to get rid of stuff if you need to, or the befuddles if you need to bounce things. But yeah, I think think it's very interesting we see something that's so low to the ground, like you talked about, but
Yeah.
I think it's cool too because you
Yeah.
basically like in these decks you can essentially ink anything because it doesn't really matter. Like all the cards in this deck are good.
Yeah.
You just ink whatever you have, you play whatever you have, and yeah.
And just get the value there. Yeah, interesting. Hobbits Habits says interesting to see a full set of Befuddle there. Again, it's just, it's another way to keep your Maleficents, your Lilos, your Pinocchios safe for a turn, yeah. And, or even just that could win you the game, just bouncing Goat back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I think it's... I wonder if this will start seeing more play after taking the win here.
Yeah,
because it's
I'm
the
very
first,
eager
first
to
time I've
see.
seen this. Yeah.
I'm very eager to see how the meta shifts as a whole based on the results from this weekend, because it's kind of all over the place when you really look at like what did good, what was the most populated, and then when you start thinking of the answers to those things, you get a really interesting mix of answers, in my opinion. Like as far as I know, the strongest aggro pairing that people were working with was Amber Amethyst.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not too surprised to see that was the aggro deck that won the tournament. Just more surprised that they didn't run into Steel and Steel, wreck them.
Yeah,
Because
grab your swords, big tink kind of does a lot to this deck early. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are arguing people are discussing. Sorry, I should say in the comments about whether or not this deck is pretty cheap. I would say this is a fairly. I wouldn't call it a budget deck, but it's a fairly cheap deck. I think really your Arthurs.
I would call it budget in regards to competitive Lorcana decks right now.
Yeah, considering this has won a 2K.
The only cheaper deck that is in the top 8 is the Amethyst Emerald deck at $150. Everything else ranges from like $250 to $450.
Yeah,
depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, and this is basically your Arthurs. Your Cinderellas have creeped up, but that's about it. I reckon everything else is probably $5 or less. And most of them are much less than that. But yeah, I guess Befuddle, Friends, man, they're all like bulk, really,
Yeah, you could definitely throw a list similar to this together, even if you were missing a couple of the expensive cards, and it would still probably do pretty good.
I think I think you could build this out. You could flesh out the docks, come down a little on your Arthurs, and have a very playable league deck, I think. Yeah. All right, let's have a look. We'll scroll through the rest quickly. Second place was a Ruby Amethyst. It's kind of exactly what you'd expect to see. There's nothing really that particularly surprises me there. Top 4, that's the same deck basically.
Yeah,
they're a little lower to the ground there, but yeah.
It's funny because Ruby Amethyst in the first chapter, I felt was very like there wasn't a very close perfect 60. There were probably 30 or 40 cards that a lot of people agreed on, but they were very different, or there were a lot of variations of the control deck and whether people like to run the evasive one or the brooms or something more control-y, who ran Mickey's, who didn't. But I've noticed looking through some of these top lists, it's a real tight, like Goat, Rabbit, Maleficent, Madame Mim, Arthur, Pascal, Yzma. Like, there's a lot of the same cards in all of these lists and a little bit of variation between all of them.
This one here by Tyler Nicola is probably the only one that really sort of stands out because it is running stuff that a few things that I wouldn't thought would see much play. The Most Diabolical Scheme, the 2-drop Tremaine. And then like just a one of the Minnie Mouse. I don't really, that's a slightly weirder mix, but yeah, for the most part, you're right. Then here's this Amethyst Amber one you were talking. Amethyst Emerald one you were talking about. So again, playing all of the stuff you would expect from Amethyst, but supported by just some slightly more aggressive stuff and a little bit of discard stuff as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit more aggro.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it is really, isn't it? The discard is probably supplement really. It's Cheshire Cat and Flynn and Enchantress. They're all just turning sideways and saying deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Donald Duck does so in a slightly different way. Turns sideways and says, "Well, if you kill me, you're not getting your card draw." So, yeah. Why are the decks sorted this way? As in, why are they? How is the deck image sorted? That's a really great question. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
No idea.
I don't know if that's Mushu's doing or
yeah, maybe how Mushu's put them into. Is this Dreamborn that does it like this, or Lorcana? I'm not sure.
I think both.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, but
they both have deck viewers.
Amber Steel songs. Then, which first look at this in the meta. Hasn't changed massively, honestly. I don't think from set one. It's just kind of added more of the same. Obviously, that Cinderella singer is very strong, and the new Steel songs that she gets to sing, and Will Create Criminal Mind as well. I think is pretty good. Obviously, you're not wanting to play that on curve.
Yeah,
with Cinderella, because if they've got actually, I suppose if they have a 5 power thing on turn 2, you probably do want to play this on curve. but I can't think of how they've possibly done that. So,
yeah. I thought this was an interesting list because it's missing some of the things that I saw a lot of people playing with. Like they're not running the 0 to hero version. They're not trying to get Carefree Surfer out super early. Yeah. They're just playing like we all know Queen's good. World's Greatest Criminal Mind gives Amber a hard removal option, and then other than that, it's just basically the really good new cards or really good staple cards that were already in the deck.
Yeah, exactly. It's the new cheap songs. It's Benja, who's just a straight up upgrade to the Beast in set 1 personally. And probably doing more work now that the Popsicle deck is seeing play. Yeah, it's interesting to see Stitch Rockstar there with very few actual targets for it. I suppose the Rockstar, I almost felt like the Rockstar is there to give your Cinderellas and 1-drop Queens something to do when you draw them later, rather than it actually being a sort of key part of the deck. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's there to kind of give you 1-drops value later in the game, as opposed to just actually being something you want to get to quickly. So, but yeah, still nothing mega surprising there. I'm looking at it.
No.
Just, like you say, you're getting a lot of value out of the new Queen. You get a lot of value out of that new Beast. So, and then another Amber Amethyst. Again, nothing there particularly sticks out as surprising. Still not convinced on the Sorcerer's Spellbook, to be honest with you. I know it's gaining a bit of popularity, but I don't know, 3-cost removal item still doesn't fuss me too much.
I think it's one of those cards that I don't know how to word this very well, but like 1 on the board is annoying, but it's over the course of the game, once you get 2 on board, or if you manage to even get like 3 and they really start to stack up and you're just like really making the game last longer than you want it to, it starts to really hurt, I think, is why we see it played in a lot of these more control-y decks.
Yeah.
Especially with the bounce stuff. You're already getting so close to 20, kind of in a way that your opponent can't interact with.
Yeah, I guess that's it, really. Like you say, other than and if there's 2 of them down and Benja comes down, it's getting rid of 1 of them, right? I did think with the emphasis on items this set, I did think we would see an item wipe.
Yeah,
I'm quite surprised we haven't. Maybe that's a set 3 thing that might be needed. But saying that, the poor deck, did kind of make huge crash of waves when it first came out, but I think it's already started to drip off a little bit.
Yeah, it just didn't seem to perform. The deck in some testing, because I actually got pretty interested in this deck. It's pretty fun to play, but it's just a slog fest if you go into aggro, because you're basically not doing anything except for setting up for the first 3 or 4 turns, and by that point, aggro bounce players are probably halfway to winning, if not further. And after that, there's not a ton you can do to come back, especially like we mentioned before. with Goat being able to gain a bunch of lore, even if they're at 16 lore and you're finally stabilizing, that's still sometimes not enough for you
exactly. That's still one turn on their go.
Yeah. So, kind of like, I think we talked about this privately some. I don't expect the Popsicle deck to last too long unless some changes are made to um, cater to the aggro matchup, because obviously bounce and aggro is very good. But yeah, I always laugh because when I was playing Legends of Runeterra, which is a digital card game from Riot Games, there's a really awesome content creator. His name's Mogwai. I think he played Magic for a while, but he was very big in Legends of Runeterra. And it was sort of a meme that every day or every couple days, he would upload a new video, like off meta video on whatever deck he came up with and played on ladder. And then the day it came out, that's all you would see on ladder, because he's the popular YouTuber that made the deck. It looks fun and it wins and everybody plays with it. And I feel like that's what happened with Popsicle. You had a couple of these YouTubers that make pixelborn content or do competitive content. And Popsicle got a lot of attraction through that. I don't know if Steadfast made a video or not. I don't remember. I think he did.
He has now, but more in response.
It wasn't the first one.
Yeah, it was.
I think
Steadfast
it was.
is more in the
I think
response
it was Zeph,
to the meta as opposed to the one that started it, kind of thing. Yeah.
But it's always very funny to see how the community reacts to deck lists from YouTubers that make a very detailed video on why this deck is broken and how popular it gets versus we see in the event it actually didn't do very well and wasn't near as popular as maybe it is on.
Yeah, I think I remember saying about it at the time when I first saw it pop off. Pop off, excuse me. I think I remember saying that, like, I think this will be good for a week until people figure out how to deal with it. And it was just that there was so much value out of the the Haram and Nick and Pulp loop.
Yeah.
And that is good. But I think as soon as people sort of figure out the play and hold something, either start getting rid of the Pulps early or just hold something to deal with Haram or Nick when he comes down, and then I think that the deck falls apart. There are some other really nice interactions that I'm seeing between Ruby Sapphire that I would love to see explored. Teeth and Ambitions and Grandma Tala are like made for each other. I think that's an awesome, an awesome that she can come out next turn, sing that. I'm loving that. Pubskull in general is just a good card. Pubskull and Noi go really nicely together.
Yeah.
So, there's some interesting lines there, but I do feel like this deck is a gimmick as opposed to it being a sort of real, solid competitive deck, personally. Yeah.
I will say it does good when it pops off and you aren't losing by turn 3, but it's one of those decks that does really well when it does what it's supposed to do, but it has a really easy and the bad matchup is really bad.
It's really bad for it. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Excuse me. All right, cool. So that's PPG. Good fun event. The other one we had this week was a PAX. So this was an official tournament ran by Ravensburger themselves as part of PAX. And this one was more interesting to me. The event in general was more interesting to me, I think. So this was one aspect of it, this constructed deck tournament. There's other things that we'll talk about in a moment. But first of all, I've only got the winning deck, the top deck for this one. But I thought we could take a look at that, and it is an Amber Steel deck, and it's a bit more of a solid build, I feel, than that other one we saw.
Yeah, it's definitely it's playing towards the 0 to hero, wanting to play the bigger like Cinderella's, get that out, which is just a very strong card. I was interested in. It was interesting for me to see both the 1-drop Cinderella and the 2-drop Cinderella being played. I'm assuming to be able to use to shift the big Cinderella on top of, because she's just a beast. She does a lot of work.
I also think that when she's getting shifted is about when the 1-drop Cinderella starts getting outpaced. you know.
Yeah.
So that she's a really good shift target in that way. You can get her down on turn 1. She can start getting some value turn 2 with singing some of those cheaper steel songs, and then the mid game you get that Cinderella down earlier. I think it's a really good shift target for her.
Yeah. I thought it was funny because in the PAX Unplugged top 8, there were 7 Ruby Amethyst
Wow.
decks, and this was the only Amber Steel deck in all of the top 8, and it ended up taking it out. But to be fair, something else I thought was interesting, it was not a best of 3. It was a 30-minute best of 1.
Oh wow.
I think it was 6 rounds and then cut to top 8. But that could be a whole nother discussion on best of 3 versus best of 1. But I would be interested to see what this tournament looks like in a best of 3 format versus one where you don't know what your opponent's playing, on the only game that you're playing against them.
Yeah,
because I do think the Amber Steel is much more catered to, I'm just gonna play my good stuff early and do what this deck does, and adjust as the game goes on.
I also wonder if it was only best of 1, 30 minutes, and the other 7 decks were all Ruby Amethyst control. I wonder how many of those games went to tie.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, because there's a good chance that they were slow. Well, it depends how much. I suppose if they were still bouncy, you can still get there pretty quick. But it's not quite like the set 1 Ruby Amethyst control that really wants to draw it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably going to be a lot of Ruby Amethyst banging heads against each other, and this was able to sort of crawl through the mud and come out victorious on it. But yeah,
and
the big one. Sorry, go ahead.
Supposedly Sleepy's Flute is the thing that put in a lot of work for this one, because I think even against Ruby Amethyst, when they were able to remove a bunch of characters on the Amber Steel side, they were able to just continue to play songs just when needed. I think even sometimes maybe when it wasn't necessary, or maybe when it didn't make the most sense, but they could use it to just continue to gain lore. And again, kind of like Spellbook, when you have 2 or 3 of those Sleepy's Flutes out on the board and you're questing for 2 or 3 every turn at the expense of a song, you can kind of creep your way up to 20 pretty easily.
It's good. It's a weird sort of board wipe insurance almost, like you get board wiped, you get to be prepared, but if there's a couple of those down, a BR guest suddenly starts getting you 2 or 3 lore. Exactly. That's pretty crazy, really. So it doesn't surprise me. It's purely the fact that it's uninkable is the only thing that makes me think it's the reason why it hasn't seen that much play. But I certainly think it's going to start seeing some more. I suppose the only thing to think is what else is sort of vying for that 2-drop slot in this deck. You've obviously got Simba. I can't really think what else is going to be. Really sort of sitting in that 2-drop slot. I know that the Gaston, the 2-drop Gaston, isn't really seeing much play. The singer. So yeah, maybe it's just it's a good spot for it to sit. You get Cinderella down, and then turn 2, if you don't need to sing anything with her, you can get one of these down and just it starts cooking straight away. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead.
Also at PAX, Ravensburger announced a new format that they, I guess, were testing or revealing. I don't know exactly. But anyway, they're trying a new format called Willpower League. I think this is supposed to be a bit more of a casual format for kind of like a side event for tournaments for people who just want to go and maybe not focus too much on the competitive stuff, but still have fun. And it honestly looked like a really interesting event. It was a 4-player multiplayer format. And you basically continued to play as long as you were winning. And whenever you lost, you had to get up from the table and you had to leave. They said you were banished. There were a lot of achievements as well that people could get while playing the game. And basically within the time slot of Willpower League that they ran, which I think was about 3 hours, because it was scheduled to start at 2:30 in the evening, and then they mentioned people getting prizing at 5:30. So I imagine it was about a 3-hour window that you could go play this. But essentially, if you were at a table in a chair still playing by the time it ended, or you were the holder of one of the achievements that they had listed, you would get prizing. I don't know what the prizing was, but it sounded really fun because there were multiple achievements like most wins, most times banished from the Willpower League, the highest strength on a single character, most damage counters on a single character, most lore gained in a single quest or action, most princesses in play at once, most villains in play at once, and most Floodborne characters in play at once. And some of the numbers were kind of surprising to see what people could get up to.
We'll go over some of these in a minute. But so first of all, the idea here is that you're sat down for a game, you're just playing like usual, and then every like 30 minutes or so they would take these numbers down.
No, so you just everybody going in knew what the achievements were that they could break.
Okay.
And I guess some people probably built decks to like try to break those achievements.
Right.
And you sit down, and when you broke the record, because like let's say for most damage on a single character the record was 5, and then you managed to get 6 damage on a character. You raised your hand, Ravensburger came over, recorded it, and like now you're the new placeholder of the achievement until somebody beats you.
So these were up on a board or something, and they were
I guess
constantly getting updated. I see. Which makes me think that some deals must have been made here, I feel.
Absolutely. Well, there was even in the official Lorcana Discord, I went back and looked at the PAX little forum they had in there of the event. And I think, if I remember correctly, the same person that got the most damage counters on a single character also held the title for highest strength on a single character.
Okay.
And I want to say that character was the goofy Night for a Day. And they even mentioned, like, Rochelle from Ravensburger posted the picture because they had to take a picture of it.
Yeah.
Posted it in the Discord and said so-and-so from across the table helped so-and-so get their card up to whatever strength. So the person across the table was helping them boost Goofy's strength up to 22, by the way, was the highest strength on the character, which is like wild. When I read these, I started thinking of like, okay, what can I play to get
I mean, 22 highest strength of the character is kind of wild. The two that really stick out for me, though, is most princesses in play and most villains in play.
Villains.
So the most princess in play at once was 23.
Yeah. It was. I think it was Amber Steele, too.
And most villains in play at once was 25.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine.
That's almost half of your deck.
I can't imagine that's possible without the other 3 people at least just leaving you alone.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do wonder if maybe the prizing was good enough to say, hey, let's all help me get this, and we'll split it, which is fine, whatever, it's a casual format, and and a good bit of fun. And I love to see them trying something that isn't just, best player wins stuff.
Absolutely.
I think it's very much in the spirit of the game to do these kind of wacky challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish so badly I could have been there, because I feel like this really would have encompassed that just fun. You sit down, you meet people for the first time, and you tell the people across the table, look, I'm playing Goofy Knight. I'm trying to get to, the highest strength and willpower or damage or whatever. Can you help me? Or I have a deck full of princesses. I'm trying to beat this record. And like, you just bond over the crazy experience of having 25 villains all on your side of the board. Like, that just sounds like an amazing time.
Yeah. I'd like to have seen that. I wish they could have filmed that, or of course been there. But then we didn't hear much about this event until a few days before, right? So
I'll be honest, I didn't know it was an official Ravensburger event till like it was happening. I knew there was a Lorcana thing at PAX, but I didn't even realize it was an official event.
And I'd love some more information about these, because PAX, it wouldn't have been that, it's about an 8-hour drive for me. That, it would have been doable. With some more information and more planning. I really hope this is just because they're still figuring a lot of this stuff out. But or my other worry is that it's to try and negate some of the excess crowds. But then these events only have so many tickets, right? So.
Exactly. Well, I do remember when tickets went on sale, I think there was only 64 seats in the constructed tournament, and they sold out like within seconds.
Yeah, of course.
Like I don't think anybody had a chance at actually getting tickets.
So no, I like the idea of this where it's just rolling through and people can reline up if they want to, but you should be able to get everyone through. A Ravensburger event selling out. Who would have thought? I know, right? It's kind of kind of crazy. But one thing I will say is that the product they had didn't seem to sell out. It seemed like this was the first time they actually had enough.
Yeah, it was crazy. I saw pictures. A lot of people compared it to Gen Con, and I mean, it got to the point where I might have mentioned this earlier in the stream that in the Discord they were telling people, hey, there's no line, and I think every day or throughout the day they would increase the limits on product that you could buy at once so people could go back. I mean, I saw pictures of people walking away with 7 booster boxes and a bunch of promos for MSRP, and all of that was essentially because they didn't want to have to pay the shipping fees to get it all back to where we're supposed to go.
Pretty standard convention fare is that Sunday either limits are reduced or even prices reduced because they don't want to send it back. So yeah, it makes sense.
And to be happy, I'm not upset to see that, because I remember being at Gen Con, we were all in the line and we were all going, man, I hope there's enough product. Like, I hope they don't just have 500 booster boxes and the first 500 people that are here sell out. And I think Ravensburger, based on what I've seen them communicate, like, they care a lot about people, like, this getting into the hands of people. And I feel like this is one of those, they would rather be over prepared and have more than they need at something like PAX, where people are traveling, spending a lot of money to come play Lorcana, go to the event, and end up having to come back with extra or sell extra to people than they would everyone get there and it sells out. Completely.
I think you're right. Of course, that's really bad PR. I think they do have to be careful, though, that it doesn't go the other way when people are struggling to get it at game stores. Game stores are charging a lot for it because they haven't had much of it, and they're at events cutting out the middle, and making a bigger chunk on it. So they have to. There's a line there to walk along, and they've got to make sure they get it right.
And I don't know if they specified LGS or just in general, but I do remember seeing that they mentioned whatever they ended up taking back with them was going to be as evenly distributed as it can across other retailers.
I'd be really surprised to see them box stuff back up again and send it to distributors, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's good. It should go to people eventually, I suppose. So, but yeah, apparently, December restock is happening for both set 1 and set 2. I'll believe it when I see it, because the October one that became the November one that became we'll see. But no, for the most part, I do think Floodborne has got into people's hands easier. Still got a long way to go. They still don't have the feet under them, I don't think, but it's definitely an improvement. And I think that if set 3 can nail the landing, I think we're onto a winner, and then we'll move forward and not have to, and that we won't have hour-long conversations every week about about availability. Yeah. So that was this week in Ink. What does next week in Ink look like for you, bud?
Honestly, I'm still trying to decide whether or not I go to League tomorrow and then also go to League on Wednesday. I'm trying to get some videos out because I know that the holidays are coming up and it's going to be 10 times harder to get videos done because most of that happens on the weekend. And so when I'm not home for the weekend, I don't have the time during the week usually to do it. So we'll see if I end up going to League or not. I might go just because I have some store credit. I did a draft sometime in between now and our last episode, and I ended up winning the draft.
Oh, nice.
And so I got a little bit of store credit. So I might go there just to pick up some packs or something and hang out with people, but don't know yet. Other than that, I did order a bunch of first chapter foils, basically everything that wasn't like $20. I've just ordered to finish out my collection, so that'll be coming in this week. I'm excited to fill those out.
That's not a bad idea, because they are just going to start to trickle up, you know, once the reprints stop, and they should. Like, I don't think they should just keep printing first chapter forever. You know, I think, you know, maybe this December reprint should probably be it then. I'd really rather them start focusing on future sets printing wise. So, you know, they will get to a point where, you know, as long as the game is popular and people are still collecting it, they will just start trickling up in price. So it's not a bad idea, that, I don't think. That's good. I'm going to spend the week trying to get rid of this last bit of cold. I'm sorry, I apologize for coughing all the way through the second half of this. My medicine's obviously wearing off. I'm losing my voice. So luckily, we're going to be able to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you all. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for hanging out, talking in the chat, dropping a like, and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to let Brandon close out.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it every week. I'll go ahead and do the outro for myself. You can find me at B224 on YouTube. You can find me on socials at B224YT. Catch us next week again, hopefully, if Jonti can get over this cold and doesn't lose his voice for a week. But catch us next week. Obviously, this is Jonti's channel. You guys should check it out. He makes awesome content. Follow him. I think all your socials are in the description as well.
For both of us, you can find us down below.
Yeah, so that was This Week in Ink.